Mightyreacts, back with the reacts. On today's video, we are reacting to top bins, football teams you won't believe exist. So enough for the talking, let's react.
Would you believe me if I told you that this football team only has one fan? This is Thiago Reich, and in 2012, he was the only fan in the stands.
Quick pause. I remember this, and I think after that they went to win the championship. Yes, I
For his
remember
Brazilian
this.
club Santa Cruz, and as the club was on the brink of collapse with nobody to support them, he took over as the president, spent his own savings, and somehow turned everything around, winning promotion, silverware, and saving the club from extinction. But this is only one of the 10 most incredible football clubs I have to show you, like the team who trains on a floating football pitch, the club whose fans literally built the stadium brick by brick, and even the club who forces its players to train ballet and somehow became one of the best teams in the entire country. But first, we have to start with a football club that sounds too fake to even exist, because this is FC Santa Claus, an officially recognized football club based in Rovaniemi, Finland, which is considered to be the hometown of Santa Claus himself, so of course they designed their entire football club around him. Red and white kits at home, green and white kits away, and a big, beautiful Santa as their club badge. But as much as this looks like a pub football team, they have quite the remarkable story, having been founded in 1993 and rising the ranks of Finnish football to the point where, by 2010, they were just one game away from promotion to the second division and even playing friendlies against the likes of Crystal Palace and West Ham United. But this is when the Santa fans received coal in their stockings because they overstretched their financials and ended up filing for bankruptcy due to bingo debts, meaning they had to restart from the 4th tier before dropping to the 5th and now the 6th tier of Finnish football. But
damn, bro, that's bad. There was one game away from the promotion, now they dropped to 6th tier. God damn.
Whilst Santa Claus FC had such a fall from grace, this football team in Thailand trained barefoot on a floating football pitch still outplayed everyone. You see, Koh Phanyi FC is a Thai football club based on a floating fish village, meaning there was literally no spare land to play on until the locals nailed fishing cages and rickety wooden planks together to make a literal floating futsal pitch. And if the ball went out of play, it would land in the sea and the villagers would have to jump in the ocean and swim after it. But adversity builds greatness, because with the wobbly pitch giving the local kids incredible balance, coupled with the constant swimming after floating footballs improving their strength, the barefoot training team actually went on to win youth tournament after youth tournament to become the under-13 South Thailand champions, beating real teams that played on real pitches. Eventually, their makeshift pitch was upgraded to the modern plastic pitch today, but even that still rolls with the waves, and now the team are one of Thailand's most successful youth teams, making their floating pitch among southern Thailand's islands a destination in itself. But while those boys in Koh Phanyi didn't have a pitch to play on, at least they had a team, because this 18-year-old moved to a foreign country and was rejected by literally every team in the nation just for him to make his own team, and within a decade built one of the biggest clubs in the country, even qualifying for Europe. Meet Lewis Perry, an 18-year-old Brit who moved to Gibraltar with a burning passion for the game of football. But when he couldn't find a team to join anywhere, so he decided to get together with some drinking buddies and form his own team. He got his grandma's pub to be the first sponsor and his friend to be the manager, and just like that, Bruno's Magpies was born. They took on a black and white kit modeling off his hometown of Newcastle, and the club's first training session was on a local beach where the team consisted of regulars from the bar. Forget FC.
Don't always take a no for an answer, bro. Hey, shout out to that guy. He was rejected to all the teams he went to, and he built his own team, and look how far he came, bro. Shout out to them too.
Barcelona, this was FC Beer Belly. But just as the team of boozers was getting started, Gibraltar, a small British enclave on the Spanish south coast, joined UEFA, and suddenly the teams in the league started upping their game. So Bruno's Magpies brought in new sponsors and eventually a new owner who was a former Olympic figure skater and had once joint-owned Watford with Elton John. And just like a rocket, man, they blew up the league, won promotion, and started bringing in better players. And after a decade of building, they eventually qualified for Europe, making it the UEFA Conference League qualifiers and beating out Derry City in the first qualifying round. Unfortunately, though, the 2024-25 season wasn't to be, as FC Copenhagen knocked them out in the second qualifying round, meaning for now, the European dream remains just a dream. To make matters worse, Perry, who had a bad knee injury, had to take a step back from playing but became the club's joint chairman, and arguably worst of all, the club's famous name is set to disappear next season with a merger with another local club. But in my heart, they will always be known as the pump team that played in Europe. I'll drink to
Hey man, but still, look how far they came, bro. He built his team, and look how far they came. Even playing in the UEFA. Nice, bro.
that. But unfortunately, this next club's players can't drink to that because it's a real football team made up of only South Korean military men. You see, South Korea and North Korea are technically at war, and as a result, every physically able male has to do around 18 months of mandatory military service during their 20s, which causes huge problems for any footballers who would end up losing 1.5 years of their prime playing career. Enter Kim Cheon-sang-moo, the sports division of the Republic of Korea Armed Forces. This team plays in South Korea's top-tier K-League, allowing the best Korean players to continue playing relatively high-level football while doing their military service. Only 15 players can join every season, selected from the best players in the K-League who plan to enroll in the military. The footballers have to have military-grade buzz cuts, and if they score a goal, they salute the flag. Players also have to follow strict military rules and train on a military base, and whenever they're not playing matches or training, they have to wear military fatigues and do some form of military exercises. But don't think these players get any special treatment because they have to go through boot camp and basic training like every other service member. But things get even stranger here, as the team is made up of the best Korean players that need to do military service. The team is usually quite competitive, but for some reason, it's forced to move cities every 10 years, and whenever it does, it automatically gets relegated. And to make matters worse, it also can't play in international competitions like the Asian Champions League, and there are very strict criteria for who can play for the Army team, meaning even Korean superstar Son Heung-min isn't eligible to play without a high school diploma. He would have been forced to do a desk job as a civil servant instead, and play in a civil servants team in Korea's semi-professional third tier, which is nearly as bad as playing for Tottenham Hotspur. But still, at least Spurs won something this year. Manchester United, on the other hand, had their worst season in decades. So this next club
Let's not talk about them
with even more fans next season because it's literally a fake Manchester United. Because back in 2005, Manchester United fans were angry at the direction their club was going in under the new Glazer ownership. Fans started turning up in green and yellow scarves, the club's original colors, as a protest against the club's owners. But some of these fans were so angry that they took their protests one step further and set up an entirely new football club, FC United of Manchester. The supporters felt disenfranchised by the rising cost of supporting Manchester United and how it was impossible to just go to games with your mates and enjoy yourself. The takeover by the Glazers was the push that led them to create a new club owned by the supporters themselves. But it wasn't easy. The club wanted to just be called FC United, but were told that the name was too generic. It had to hold trials to create a squad, and the club's first head coach, Carl Marginson, still ran a fruit and veg delivery business, having to get changed into a suit in the back of his van before his first press conference. Manchester United fans called them traitors, and even Sir Alex Ferguson criticized them, and the team didn't even have their own ground.
Understandable.
More than 900 people applied for trials, and FC United of Manchester were able to create a decent squad. The club had to start in the 10th tier of English football, and since then have been working their way up the pyramid. By 2015, they had built their own 4,400 capacity stadium, and the club is still owned by 2,300
They really
of their
grind for
supporters,
this,
making them one of the largest supporter-owned clubs in the UK. But whilst the Man United from Wish angered all the real Man United fans, this next club has angered every fan in England by becoming the wokest club in the entire country, to the point where they even introduced a burger ban at the stadium. This is Forest Green Rovers, a club from a small village in Gloucestershire who play in England's 5th tier. But they
Hey, quick thing. Would y'all try this? Run off a mountain of cliff, mountain thing? Bro.
caught people's attention in 2010 when they were taken over by former hippie turned wind farm industrialist Dale Vince and the eco-freak turned Forest Green Rovers into the world's first vegan football club. Fans can't buy burgers, pies, or hot dogs at Forest Green's new lawn stadium. Instead, these British football classics have been replaced by quinoa, salads, and even vegan pizzas. And that rule is not just for the fans. Antonio Conte might have banned ketchup, but at Forest Green, meat is off the menu for players too. Vince says if fans are so desperate to eat meat, they can bring their own ham sandwiches to the game. And going vegan is just one part of it because
I will bring my own sandwich, bro. Nothing against vegan food, but hey,
almost
I
half
like
its
my
carbon footprint per supporter because it doesn't use
meat burger.
pesticides or herbicides on the pitch. Instead, it uses solar panels, recycles water and cooking oil, and even has electric charging points and a park and ride scheme. But believe it or not, at a point, all these schemes seem to be working because Forest Green Rovers got as high as League One, the third tier of English football. But it wasn't long before they suffered back-to-back relegations, falling back to the fifth tier in England. But now the club has even bigger ambitions, including building a brand new stadium made completely out of wood. And when it's finally built, the Forest Green says it will be the world's greenest stadium. But so far, none of these football clubs have really made their mark on the biggest of stages. But this next club is the third most successful club in all of Spain, and they've done this without signing a single player from abroad. You see, Athletic Bilbao, or Athletic Club to give it its proper name, only selects players from the Basque Country, a small area of northern Spain and southwestern France with a population of just over 3 million people. And the club has followed this strict policy since 1912, which severely limits the pool of players it can sign, forcing it to focus on developing the best talent possible, such as Aymeric Laporte, Inaki, and Nico Williams, and Kepa Arrizabalaga in recent years.
Hey, for the football fans, what is your thought about Nico Williams signing his new contract with Athletic Bilbao? What you think? He should have go to Barcelona, my team, or he make a great decision by staying? I say he should have come to Barcelona, but his decision, his career, happy for him still. He's a good player. Shout out to him. But let's keep on going with the video.
And despite never signing star players, the togetherness of the club has led it to huge success, being one of only 3 teams to have never been relegated from La Liga and winning 8 La Liga titles and the Copa del Rey 24 times. But to make their transfer policy even harder, they aren't the only Basque club, as they have to compete for that limited pool of players with local rivals Real Sociedad, who have had the same policy of only signing Basque players until 1989, when they shifted to the regular policy. This policy has such an effect on the youth players that they know each other so well, meaning when they graduate to the senior squad, they can perform at a higher level than the sum of their parts. But while the Basque region has produced some of the game's top coaches, such as Mikel Arteta, Xabi Alonso, and Unai Emery, the Basque-only policy doesn't apply to Athletic Club's coaching staff, and the club has been led by coaches from England, Brazil, Yugoslavia, and a host of other places in its past, even once being led by the legendary Marcelo Bielsa, who even took Bilbao to the Europa League final. But now we're entering the top 3, and things are about to get weird, because at number 3, I have to tell you about the football club that forced its players to train ballet and how it actually worked. This is Östersunds FK, based in a tiny Swedish town where...
Bro, why? I think for the balance of coordination, I don't know why. But hey, let's see.
The temperature can plummet to minus 20 degrees Celsius. And this is Graham Potter, ex-Chelsea and current West Ham manager, but almost a decade ago, he was a nobody from England who was just appointed as the latest manager for Östersunds FK, and at the time, the club was at an all-time low with morale at rock bottom and fans disinterested in the recently relegated no-hopers. So, Potter decided extreme measures were needed. He brought in a load of failed footballers who couldn't find professional clubs in England and decided to give them a chance in Scandinavia, and he...
Shout out to him, bro. That's a really good thing he did right there. Giving other people chances instead of keep going with, only professionals play or big players.
Used his master's degree in emotional intelligence to build team morale by hiring a culture coach and putting on a play for the locals. Instead of dribbling around cones or practicing set pieces, Potter's players spent their Tuesday afternoons rehearsing for Swan Lake. But now, seriously, how does ballet help football? The players
I want to know too.
hated it at first, but in the end, it gave the players confidence and belief. They felt if they could prance around on stage in front of 1,000 people, then they could do anything on the pitch. The team also wrote a book together and did an art exhibition. And somehow, Potter's efforts paid off as
Make them closer together.
Pirouetted their way up the leagues, winning promotion again and again, all the way to Sweden's top division. They then won the Swedish Cup to qualify for the Europa League, where the bunch of former rejects and failures beat Galatasaray, PAOK.
Look how a different environment can help you. They went to do ballet, and look how they became at the top. Yeah.
And Hertha Berlin Berlin and drew with athletic Bilbao to reach the knockout rounds where they faced Arsenal, but despite losing the first leg, they incredibly beat Arsenal 2-1 in the second leg, and since then, some of the players have since gone on to represent their country, and Graham Potter has become a Premier League manager. So when you hear of head coaches doing crazy things, remember, even the craziest of ideas might actually work. But when Graham Potter arrived at Ostersund, they had only 200 fans, but that's still 199 fans more than this next club, because a couple of years back, when Brazilian club Santa Cruz traveled to an away match against Grêmio, they probably expected some fans to make the trip, but in the away stands that day was Thiago Reck and nobody else. He was the only
true supporter, man,
to support his team, the only true fan the football club had. And this left Thiago wondering where his fellow Santa Cruz fans were. When his team took an early lead, he had to celebrate alone, and by this point, the TV cameras had spotted that he was alone in the stand. Soon,
imagine being alone
down though, and an image of him sitting alone supporting with a plastic drink went viral around the world. 1 year later, things got even worse as Santa Cruz were struggling and only had 4 non-playing staff, so they took a punt and decided to give their dedicated superfan a job trying to find sponsors and doing their communications and marketing.
Club,
and as time went on, the club eventually made him president, but this dream job was a lot tougher than it seemed for Thiago, and he even had to use his own savings and credit cards to try to help the club stay afloat. In the end, it was all just too stressful.
Hey, shout out to the guy. Hey, real true supporter, man. Wow.
So he quit and went back to just being a fan. But a few years later, Santa Cruz was on the brink of extinction, and Thiago was told the club would close unless he became its president. So despite the stress of the job, he took it and this time managed to turn the club around, paying off all the bills and attracting better players, taking the club to silverware and even promotion to the top tier of the Gaucho state, making for an incredible turnaround, all on the back of one superfan who turned up for his team when nobody else did. And when it comes to superfans, I have to tell you about the club that couldn't build their own stadium, so the fans literally built it instead. You see, Union Berlin comes from the eastern side of the city, and like many clubs in the former East Germany, the fall of the Berlin Wall completely changed the trajectory of the side, and it has struggled compared to teams in the wealthier former West Germany. Reunification almost bankrupted the club, but the one thing that kept it going was its fans. The club has more than 70,000 members who all pay a monthly fee, even though the club's tiny stadium can only hold 22,000. That stadium was basically rebuilt by Union's fans themselves. The ground, which had been the club's home since 1920, had fallen into disrepair to the point where Union Berlin were no longer allowed to play there. So fans took the decision into their own hands. More than 2,300 fans volunteered their services to rebuild the stadium as best they could, only leaving specialist work like the cantilever roof to outside contractors. The volunteers all wore red construction hats at the next game against local rivals Hertha Berlin. They had put in some 140,000 hours into rebuilding the ground, and if that wasn't enough, when the club was on the verge of bankruptcy, the supporters literally donated their blood, as you can get paid for blood donations in Germany, in order to fund the club and keep them alive. And while for years after reunification,
look, that's how you see there are good peoples out there and true fans.
They had been in the shadow of their western rival Hertha Berlin. In 2019, Union finally got promoted into the Bundesliga, Germany's top tier, and the underdog community club that hosts Christmas carol concerts and let fans bring their own sofas to watch World Cup matches on the pitch.
Hey, that's cool, bro. That's nice.
Until in 2023, they finished 4th in the Bundesliga and qualified for the Champions League for the first time in their history, giving the loyal fans the reward they deserve. Now, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, and you should really watch the one on screen now. It's even better.
So yeah, man, we reached at the end of the video. I really enjoyed this video. It was inspiring. You see a lot of true fans, people with hearts. Shout out to Tubbins for this amazing video. If you guys enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. See you guys on the next reaction. Peace.